Hello there and welcome to my little hobby shop. Today I will show you my newly restored Abene circular grinder. It's a Swedish built machine from the 50s. The grinder is hydraulic and you have two hydraulic pumps in it. The big one is applying pressure to the table and the little pump is lubricating the ways. We have a coolant pump to the machine, and the grinding spindle is lubricated with air and oil mist. As you can see, it's a quite massive grinding spindle housing, or what you can call it. It was a little bit tricky to get that one in place. So this machine can be used both for OD grinding and inside grinding. We have the big wheel, of course, that is for the OD grinding. And when we turn it around, we have the inside grinding spindle. And the inside grinding spindle is Morse 2 taper. Then we can use different kind of grinding stones. That one, for instance, or we can use a smaller one. There is also a possibility to use small grinding, what do you call them? Very small grinding pins, anyway. The controls are quite straightforward on the machine. You have a master switch and a button to start the hydraulic pump and the grinding spindle. We have a switch to start the coolant pump and a switch to start the headstock, or what you call it, on a circular grinder. And with this wheel we move the grinding head. We can lock it and we can set some stops and so. The controls for the table, you can move it by hand, and as you see, it's quite nice in the ways. No resistance at all. If you like to use the hydraulic, just move that lever and it starts to. This little knob is changing the direction of the table, and with this little stop you can move it and decide how long stroke you like to. With this one you control the speed, if you like to grind fast or slow. You also have this little thing that make it possible to stop at the end. So when the table reaches the stop, it stays for a while and then go in the other direction. And as I understand it, you use that if you like to grind towards a flange or something. And this is what I call the headstock. I don't know if it's the correct word in English, but anyway, it's the part of the grinder that turns the thing you like to grind. And we can use a center like that if we like to grind between centers. We can adjust the speed on it, and if we like we can put a chuck in it as well. This headstock is possible to turn up to 90 degrees. Okay, if we remove the belt cover, we can take a look at the grinding spindle. I don't know if you can see it, but the tube that holds the grinding spindle is this big one, and the spindle is not mounted in the center of it. As you can see, the spindle is not in the center of the spindle hub, and the reason for that is on top of it we have this pin. That one is connected to this micrometer, and when you turn this you move the spindle in the housing, and as this one is not in the center, it will move a little bit forward or backwards. So with this little wheel we can make fine adjustment when we are grinding, and each division on this wheel is 1/1000 of a millimeter. Okay, so if you look at the tube, we have two markings and one kind of a center line. So when I turn this wheel, you can see that the tube is moving. I have to turn a lot, and it's very little movement. Okay, now the table, the bottom part of the table is moving on a V-way and one flat way. The top part, on the other hand, is movable. So if we loosen these two bolts, we can move the table in that direction or this direction. And that makes it possible to grind up to 10 degrees, or whatever degree up to 10 degrees if you like to grind a Morse tape or whatever. And I don't know if you can see it, but in fact there is a lot of the old scraping marks left on the machine. When I restored it, the first plan was to re-scrape the whole machine, but when I did all the measurements, it was just no idea to do it because it was in quite good shape. The only thing I maybe could do is on the V-ways on the back side. There was a little dip around 1/2 to 1/100 of a millimeter, but the rest of it was in quite good condition. The front part is where the headstock and the tailstock is lining up. So that one I maybe have to do something about. But first I will try to use the machine and see what result I get, and then maybe I do something about this edge and maybe take care of the top a little bit. Rest of it is just in perfect condition. Well, when you buy an old machine like this, it's quite important that you get all the accessories with it, because it's almost impossible to get things for an old machine like this. But I was lucky. I got this sharpening unit to sharpen the grinding wheel. There was a following rest to it as well, if you grind long parts, and there was also a steady rest to it. So the machine is it's quite complete. The only problem with it is I have to learn to use it. As I mentioned before, I have never used a machine like this, so it will probably be a lot of trial and error. Okay, the first grinder attempt I did on this machine, I used this shack. I just took a scrap piece, put it in the shack and started to grind. This was the setup I used, and it was no problem with the setup. And it was a very nice grinding result, although it's a little bit tapered and there is some shatter marks. The shatter marks depends on, I don't have any balancing device for the wheel. I tried to find a Granlund one, but they are a little bit hard to find in Sweden sometimes. And the reason for this being tapered was that the table was not exactly at zero, and the headstock as well was not exactly at zero. But the problem was the cooling water. When you start to grind this, you have all the water in this direction. I had two options: to put the machine in the bathroom, and the other option to build some kind of flashcard. Well, paper is quite good, so I made a couple of different designs to this one. And what I came up with was this contraption. First I made this piece. And then I milled out these fastening things. I took a 3mm steel plate, put it on a round table and milled the radia. A 1.5mm steel piece that I bent for hand and welded it together. And on the other side we have this one. And then the plan is to use a steel rod like this, hopefully, and use some kind of material like that. If you like to have a longer one, well, just take another rubber, put it beside. So in this way the splash guard can be adjusted. This should be painted and look a little bit nicer when I finish with it, but I will use it like this and see how it works. So hopefully soon I will be able to show you some grinding, and I'm planning to use the machine in a project that I'm starting very soon. So hopefully you will see more of this machine. Okay. Thanks for watching. That is not good for the paint.